Hello. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to load cargo in the Blackbird C-130J and how to use the weight and balance section of the CNI-MU. First, to answer the most common weight and balance question we get, no, you can't. The C-130 is just too American. There is no way in the entire aircraft or anywhere to view or input fuel, cargo, or any other weight in kilograms. Weights are in pounds, arms are in inches, and the air conditioning is in Fahrenheit. That's just the way it is, and I'm powerless to change it. Now, let's go into the tablet and select the Cargo tab. Adding cargo is very simple. The available cargo to load is shown on the menu on the right-hand side. We can set any of these we like. It's as easy as that. Almost. The catch is that, depending on fuel load, we may overload the aircraft. We can see very easily whether we are above or below max gross weight, as the gross weight value in the weight and balance summary window will turn red if we exceed the nominal max gross. What's more subtle are the CG and fuel loading limits. To get a better look, let's expand the weight and balance window. Now we can see our load sheet, which shows a detailed breakdown of weights and arms, exactly the data that we need to enter into the mission computer. Note that the actual cargo weights and arms are randomized slightly each time you load cargo, so bear that in mind. The rough loadings for each preset will be similar each time, but the exact weight of each item and load station will fluctuate. Standard procedure for most C-130J operators is for the loadmaster to enter the weight and balance data into the CNI-MU as part of the loading process. We can simulate that by selecting Send to MC, which will automatically enter the weight and balance data into the mission computer. However, for the purposes of this tutorial, let's enter it manually. First, select MC index. Then select weight and balance. Now, let's check our operating weight. The basic weight for the aircraft, the long version, is 88,252 pounds at an arm of 727 inches from the datum. On the long version, your CG will be around 730. On the short, it will be around 530. Now let's check that our crew and equipment weight matches what's loaded. Aside from crew weight and bags, these normally are set once and left there. So if you wish to change the values for crew weight, bags, etc., you can do that in the MSFS default tablet. Just make sure to update this page or hit Send to MC here after you do. Our values are matching, and added together they give an operating weight of 89,511 pounds at 722 inches. The operating weight is the gross weight minus fuel and payload. Now select fuel. On the left, we have the takeoff fuel on board, which defaults to the sensed fuel quantity. And on the right, we have the estimated landing fuel, which we need to enter to make sure that our landing load and CG are within limits. Let's assume that we're planning to land with 4,000 pounds in the outboard tanks, so 2,000 each in tank 1 and 4, and 2,800 in the inboard tanks, and empty aux and ext tanks. This gives us a total of 6,800 pounds of fuel, and note that the arm moves slightly aft as fuel is burned. Next stop is the limits page. On the left side, we have our gross weight and CG limits at takeoff and landing. The allowed load line, then, is just the amount of payload you'd have to add to get to max gross weight. However, this is not necessarily the strictest limitation on payload. The real maximum allowed payload is the highlighted value here, and it's determined by the maximum allowed wing flex, and wing flex depends on fuel loading in the wing tanks. Given the amount of fuel in each of the tanks and the selected operating area, the mission computer calculates the maximum zero fuel weight allowed, and from this, the maximum payload weight allowed at that fuel weight. The operating area selection at the top selects, essentially, what kind of maneuvering you plan to do with the aircraft. Area A is the least restrictive operating area, which gives you -1 G to 3 Gs. Area B and Area C both allow 0 to 2.5 Gs, and Area D allows 0 to 2.25 Gs. Your max recommended airspeed, VH, depends on altitude, but it also decreases depending on which operating area you are in. We select primary fuel management when applicable, more on that in another video. And by scrolling through the operating areas, we can see the maximum payload weight for that operating area. Note that sometimes this will be limited by our takeoff fuel load, and sometimes it will actually be limited by our landing fuel load. So we can see that with 15,900 pounds of payload, we can't use operating area A. But we can use operating area C, which allows us our full allowed load and is limited only by the gross weight. This is fine, but we need to keep the additional limitations in mind as we fly the aircraft. Now let's move to the payload section and enter the actual payload. We can add it in any of the slots here. We have 2 payload entries here, one for the pallet and one for the container. So let's enter the weights and arms from our load sheet. So 6600/603, and we have 9300 at 783. This gives us a total payload weight of 15,900 pounds with an arm of 708 inches. Now, let's go back to the weight and balance main page and check the final numbers. We can see that our final takeoff gross weight is 156,500 pounds, and that our CG is at 25.3%. We can check this against the CG limits for takeoff on the limits page, which is 24 to 29%, so we're great there. We can also check the landing CG against the landing limits. If we select landing, we have a landing MAC of 21%, so that's also good. We should always check, but if at any point you input anything which puts either a weight or a CG outside the limits, you will get a CNI message in the scratchpad informing you. To finish up this video, let's check the V-speeds page. An MC index V-speeds. This tells us our current operating area based on the numbers we have in weight and balance and our current sensed fuel. And we can see that we are indeed in operating area C. And that gives us a max recommended airspeed of 245 knots at our current altitude, and G-load limitations of 0 to 2.5 when symmetrical, i.e. without the ailerons or rudder deflected, and 0 to 2.0 when asymmetrical. That's it for this video. Have a great day.